We are trying to be honest and fair and factual here at the Damage Report when it comes to this pandemic. When there's bad news, we don't gloss over it, but we have also been looking out for good news and telling you that we will acknowledge it when the news is good. When deaths have been down for a couple of days, we've acknowledged it, and I want to acknowledge some good news now. We have been very, I think justifiably, critical of the lack of concern over testing coming from the federal government, but the numbers overall in that area have been trending in the right direction. Way too slowly, but you can see here the number of tests being done on a daily basis. You've had over the past couple of days an elevation to around 300 or so thousand tests being done on a daily basis. Now that is still too low. It's still too low, but that is better. And you can see that in fits and starts, it is going up. We're gonna have more on this, but Michael, good news! Yay!
Yeah, we'll take it. No. I mean, that's what we're hoping for. We're hoping that this is the beginning of a lot of that, and I don't think there's anyone among us who wouldn't just be ecstatic about that.
Exactly, and so that's about 300,000. There was a great episode of Stephen Colbert of John Oliver's show devoted to the question of testing, and he referred to a lot of experts saying that the bare minimum for a safe reopening of society would be at least 500,000, if not in the multiple millions per day. So, look, we're still far shy of that. A lot of work needs to be done, but we are moving apparently in the right direction. I want to be clear, though, about why we are moving in that right direction, and that is based on the evidence we have due to amazing work being done on the state level. That states are prioritizing this. In some cases, literally going abroad to purchase tests to bring back so that they can have more happen. Larry Hogan, is a great example of that. What they are not receiving still is enough support from the federal government. And right now, we have Trump's blueprint for testing. It explicitly leaves the problem to the states and the private sector, saying the federal government will only act as a supplier of last resort. And we know that over much of April, testing numbers stagnated due to supply shortages of swabs, reagents, and other materials needed to collect samples and run coronavirus tests. Now, the states have apparently done whatever they can to fill that gap, and that's why the numbers are going up. But they are still not receiving the support that they need from the federal government, who could be both using the DPA to get those numbers up here domestically, cutting deals with other countries to do what we can to, fill the gap that way. And they're not doing that. And so this is progress. This is good news, but it could be a lot better right now if Trump had taken this seriously from the beginning, or even if he started to take it seriously now. That would be something. But so far, that's not what we're seeing.
No, it's not. And they also need a definition of what last resort is, right? I mean, at a certain point, a lot of these places are looking for the last resort now. And if the federal government says they're the last resort, well, it's time to resort up. I think that's part of the problem, too, is there was no definition about what would be a good deal of compliance from the states, and governors wanted that. They were craving that information from the federal government, and it was never defined. So some definition is certainly, and I think you'll hear Rick Bright talking about it as well, and you've heard others talk about it. There's just been this definition. Even today, the president, when we were playing that about sending kids back to school, he said, I don't know, number of weeks, 5, 4, but some weeks.
Mm-hmm.
There's no definition ever. Is it Easter yet? Right? I don't know. And so I think that from top to bottom, there has to be that, and that's been lacking.
Yeah. One other measure, I'm not going to go super in detail, but one thing that the experts have been looking for is for our percentage of tests being conducted that come back positive for coronavirus to fall. Because as long as that is very high, it indicates that they are only testing people who almost certainly have this thing. They're reserving the tests for the worst case scenario. And as that number goes down, it represents a freeing up of tests for edge cases that are suspected but not seriously believed. And we are seeing that number start to go down. It is nowhere near where it's at in some other countries. Some other countries have a positive test rate of 2 or 3%. We are far higher than that currently, but that is good news. I do want to balance the good news, though, with I have to reveal to you that while I'm continuing to track the death numbers every day, and they had gone down for 2 days, and then every day for the last 4, they've been going up, what's interesting is that we are seeing a separation of the severity of the epidemic between New York in particular and the rest of the country. And when you just look at the national numbers, it hides that to some extent. So if you take a look at this, you're going to see the number of cases with the Connecticut, New Jersey, and New York area being the darker line. And that has been going down over the past couple of weeks, thankfully, especially because those are the worst hit. New York and New Jersey as well has been very rough too. The cases outside of that area, though, are relatively stable for a couple of weeks now. So just understand that. And the quarantines are going away. They were stable while we were socially distancing, and now we're not going to be. And you've probably seen the pictures of the bars in, I think it was Milwaukee, that are just
Colorado
packing,
too.
Yeah, packing it in. No masks. Everybody shoulder to shoulder. Maybe there won't be a spike of coronavirus, but I find it hard to believe that it's a perfect situation for the spread of this virus that's being set up. And we'll see, because we're going to be able to break down the numbers by state. Assuming that the testing is actually happening, we'll be able to see which states see spikes and which don't.
Yeah. That's what we have to go with. And so it's plain to see already what the differences are. And now as they pack the bars and they pack the beaches, let's see what happens.
Yeah. And, we've got the beaches opening up in LA, thankfully only for exercise. So apparently they're not packed. Not yet, but we'll see as weeks go by. We'll see. Maybe even here, people might start to take it less seriously. Hopefully not.
Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.